Good morning. In numeracy today, we are going to multiply and divide fractions. You will see questions that look like this. The top row, they're a little bit easier because we're just multiplying and dividing with basic fractions. And then this bottom row, they're a little bit harder because we involve mixed numbers. In the past few weeks, we've covered some concepts that are pretty important, like converting from mixed to improper and vice versa, as well as reducing fractions to lowest terms. Make sure you understand those concepts. They're pretty important here. Before we move on, I just want to point out that last week we looked at adding and subtracting with fractions. And today, obviously, we're doing multiplying and dividing. Both involve operations with fractions. So you'd think that there were similarities between the strategies, that it was pretty equal. Nope. Not even close. And so it gets a little bit confusing. So you need to practice multiplying and dividing today, and then go back and practice adding and subtracting, and then go back and forth and back and forth. And the more that you go back and forth, the less confusing that it is, I hope. All right, starting with multiplying fractions. Generally a pretty easy concept. The easiest way to explain this is you just multiply straight across. So like when we added and subtracted, let's work down our page. So put your equal sign here. But what I mean is you multiply across. So the numerators are across from each other. Multiply them. 2 times 4 is 8. Denominators are across from each other. 3 times 5 is 15. We're in lowest terms. We're done. Moving on to the next example. Multiply across. 2 times 15 is 30. Multiply your denominators. 5 times 16 is 80. This is not in lowest terms. We've covered this already. Let's put it into lowest terms. Cancel out the greatest common factor. We get 3 over 8. There's nothing wrong with this strategy in the sense that you'll eventually get the right answer. And what I mean by this strategy is multiplying first and then reducing. However, it can be tougher later on, and down the road you're going to get some pretty big numbers here. And so I want to show you a different strategy that I would prefer most students use because 1, it's easier, and 2, I think it's just better. And you reverse the steps. You don't multiply first and then reduce. Reduce first and then multiply. Here's how it works. Look at your numerators. So we have a 2 and we have a 15. And then you ask yourself, do either of these numerators have any common factors with any of my denominators? For example, 5 and 15 have a common factor of 5. So we can cancel out that factor. Canceling out means divide it out. When you do that, you cross it out and you write down what your answer is. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 15 divided by 5 is 3. 2 and 16 have a common factor of 2. Cancel that out. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 16 divided by 2 is 8. So now we have these much smaller numbers here, and now we can multiply across. 1 times 3 is 3, and 1 times 8 is 8. Notice we get the same answer, but we reduced first before we multiplied. Let's look at that with this next example here. 4 nines times 3 over 10. 4 and 10 have a common factor of 2. So I'm going to cancel by a factor of 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 3 and 9, common factor is 3. Cancel that out. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And here's where I think it's easier. Now you have smaller numbers. 2 times 1, 2. 3 times 5, 15. And you don't need to reduce. You have no more common factors left. We're in lowest terms. When you have a question like this next one here, where you have mixed numbers, the first thing that you need to do when you're multiplying and dividing fractions is convert all mixed fractions into improper fractions. Remember, the denominator doesn't change. Take your denominator, times it by your whole number, add the numerator. All right, go back a couple weeks if you forgot how to do that. So you're going to convert first. Now, before you multiply, you want to get into the habit of canceling out common factors. 7 and 7 have a common factor of 7. They can both be divided by 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 2 and 38 have a common factor of 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 38 divided by 2 is 19. Now when you multiply, you'll get your answer in lowest terms. 1 times 19 is 19, and 1 times 1 is 1. But you don't leave an answer like this. If you get 19 over 1, that's the same as 19. So make sure you change all those answers you get over 1 to just an integer answer. Division. When we divide with fractions, we change to multiplication questions. What we say is this. We're going to multiply the reciprocal. So here's a new math term maybe for you. And I'll explain what the reciprocal is with our first example here. Here are the steps. Your first fraction stays the same. And then division changes to multiplication. And then we write the reciprocal of 1 over 2. It's 2 over 1. So when you reciprocate, you take that fraction and you essentially turn it upside down. Now, let's check to see if we can cancel common factors. Some of you might think we can. You're going to look at that 4 and that 2 and say they can both be divided by 2. But they're both numerators. It has to be one numerator with one denominator. So there's no common factors. Let's just multiply across and we get 8 over 5. That is an improper fraction, so we need to change that to a proper mixed number for full marks and to be done. All right, so let's practice this again here. 4 over 7 divided by 8 over 21. Well, first fraction doesn't change. Division becomes multiplication, and then we write the reciprocal. Turn that second fraction upside down. Cancel common factors before you multiply. And you want the greatest common factor. So the greatest common factor that 4 and 8 have is 4. Cancel that out. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 7 and 21, greatest common factor is 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1. And 21 divided by 7 is 3. There are no more common factors in our numerator row and our denominator row, so we can multiply straight across. We'll get 3 over 2, which we need to change to a proper mixed number, 1 and 1/2. A couple more division ones here. Step 1, they're mixed numbers, so let's change them to be improper fractions. Here we get 14 as a numerator and 14 here as well. Now we're going to change division to multiplication, and we reciprocate this second fraction. And then before we multiply, cancel common factors. 14 and 14 have a common factor of 14. Divide them both by 14, and you're left with 1. And now we can multiply across. 1 times 5 is 5. 3 times 1 is 3. That's an improper fraction. Let's change it to a proper mixed number before we're done. There we go. 1 and 2 over 3. Another one. Step 1, change to improper fractions. 3 times 9 is 27. Add 1 is 28. And here we get 16. Step 2, recognize that you're dividing with fractions, which means you need to multiply the reciprocal. First fraction stays as is, division becomes multiplication, and then we reciprocate. Again, that means we turn it upside down. And then now we're just multiplying with fractions, and before we multiply, check to see if you can cancel common factors. What is the greatest common factor that 28 and 16 have? It's 4. Divide them both by 4. 28 divided by 4 is 7, and 16 divided by 4 is 4. And now there's no more common factors, so we can multiply. 7 times 5 gives us 35, and 3 times 4 gives us 12. Improper fraction. Can't leave that as an improper fraction, so we need to change it to a proper mixed number to be done. Okay, before we finish this off, let's just do one more multiplication and one more division, just to make sure we get this. Can't have mixed numbers, so step number 1, I'm going to change this to improper fractions. Before I multiply, cancel common factors. Take a careful look. 10 and 5 have a common factor of 5. Cancel it out. 10 divided by 5 is 2. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 3 and 33 have a common factor of 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 33 divided by 3 is 11. Now multiply. 2 times 11, 22, and 1 times 1 is 1. Don't leave your answer as 22 over 1. That is 22. One additional step with division. Let's take a look here. First of all, we need to have improper fractions. So let's just spend a step here changing these to improper fractions. 1826. Okay, now division becomes multiplication. Remember, the first fraction doesn't change, stays the same. Division becomes multiplication, and we reciprocate. Next, before you multiply, can you cancel common factors? Well, 9 and 3 have a common factor of 3. Let's cancel it out. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 14 and 26, common factor of 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7, and 26 divided by 2 is 13. No more common factors exist. Let's multiply. 7 times 3, 21. 1 times 13 is 13. Okay, again, we have an improper fraction, so we can't stop here. Let's change this to a proper mixed number. There you go. A lot of information today. Like I said, it's a bit of a harder concept. Spend a bit of time practicing, do the practice questions on this presentation. As always, let us know if you guys need some help, and then when you're ready for your assessment, have at her. Good luck.